So I'm making this video especially for everyone who comes to the Queen Mary International Foundation Programme wishing to progress to law. You probably already know that Queen Mary is very highly ranked for law. We're usually the best law school in London, and we're normally within the top 30 or 40 law schools in the world. So there's a lot of competition for places here. The entry requirements are high, and the standards, obviously when you're on the programme, are also very high. Let's have a look at what happened to all of our law candidates last year. So there were 24 students who enrolled on the law pathway in September 2018. What do you think happened to the 24? Okay, now at the start of the year, just like this year, I told all of these students that in terms of their subject modules, they had to take English language and study skills, the independent study project in semester 2. They have to take modules in history, politics and international relations, and one other essay-based subject. So that could be business and management, film, literature, or human geography. I always recommend literature. I think it's the best challenge and the best preparation for a future law student. And in the last 3 years, I can't remember any genuine law candidate choosing to do literature. So my advice rarely gets followed. A very popular optional subject for law candidates is business and management, and on a practical level, I mean, that's quite sensible because it does give you some alternative options if you don't get the grades required for law. Because to progress to an LLB law at Queen Mary, you need to pass the foundation programme overall with at least 80% attendance. You need to complete your UCAS application within the deadlines that we set. By the end of March, you need to be averaging at least a B+, so that we're in a position that we could recommend you for the School of Law. You have to have made a good enough impression that we are recommending you in the first place. And by the end of the year, you need to have achieved at least an A across all of your semester 2 modules. Okay, that's all. You don't need to take the LNAT test, which is required at some other universities. That's not required here at Queen Mary. You just need to do very, very well on essay-based subjects on the foundation programme. Typically, only 1 in 4 law applicants are successful. If you compare that with business or politics, there we have at least 3 in 4 applicants who are successful. There are a number of reasons why this might be the case. It's really important that you think about what it means to study law, not to work as a lawyer. So pretty much every personal statement I see from a student who wants to study law talks about being a lawyer, or family members being lawyers, inspirational trials and rulings. Very little attention to what it actually means to study law. Okay, so applying to university to study law is not the same thing as applying to practice law. 50% of practicing lawyers in the UK right now do not do law as their first degree, okay? And 50% of law graduates are doing something other than practicing law. Okay? So it's really important to be realistic about your abilities and about your genuine interests. If you're not engaged, if you're not interested, if you're not resilient, if you're not passionate about reading, an LLB is not for you, and you probably won't get the grades on the foundation programme to progress to the LLB anyway. So, what happened to the 24 students who enrolled on the law pathway in September 2018? The short answer is, some were successful, some progressed to their first choice degree. Others changed their subject from law to something else in order to stay at their first choice university. Some progressed to their insurance choice degree, so they went to do an LLB at another university, and some did not progress. So some are not currently enrolled on a degree programme anywhere in the UK, to my knowledge. Okay? question is, of those 24, how many did each of these things? Right? 6 were successful and progressed to their first choice. 2 changed their subject. 11 progressed to an insurance choice, and 5 didn't progress at all. Now, they did not progress to any degree program in the UK. That's a really high number compared to any other subject. Okay, for last year, we didn't have any students studying for a different subject who are not currently at a UK university now, apart from one who's at a US university because that's what he wanted. Okay? So this number 5 is quite significant. This is a breakdown of where our 24 students are now, and you can see the various universities and courses that they chose. As I said, this is the short answer. I think the long answer is much more important if you want an understanding of how to do well and how to be successful as a law candidate. Okay. The grades that students get in the Semester 1 English Language and Study Skills module often tells us a great deal about that student's engagement with the programme, because this is actually a module where there are grades that you can pick up for engagement with tasks. We don't only grade the quality of the work that you submit, say, when you write your 1,500 word essay. We also grade how you approach each stage of writing that essay, and actually those elements carry more weighting in the assessment than the final piece of writing. So actually, if you start the year without much confidence in your written English, but you work really hard and you make progress, then you'll do really well in English Language and Study Skills. You'll get a good grade. Now, if we look at the grades of students who are successful in Semester 1, they don't have to get really great grades in English Language and Study Skills in order to meet the progression requirements. But what we see is it's a really good indicator of who's going to make it and who isn't. The average grade of the students who ended up progressing to law at Queen Mary or at their first choice at universities is an A, so it's above 70%. Those who went to their second choice university or a second choice subject averaged around 65%. That's a mid-range B. Okay. The students who didn't progress at all typically didn't take English Language and Study Skills seriously at all, and the average mark of those students is a bare pass. Okay. Attendance is really very important if you want to do well on the foundation programme. If you want to progress to law and you're not interested in attending classes, then you can forget about law at Queen Mary. Okay. Unfortunately, every year we have to send attendance warnings and have formal conversations with students who miss too many classes. Okay. If we look at our law applicants, of our 24 law applicants, more than half of them had attendance problems. More than half of them needed to be reminded that they had to attend classes. More than half of them needed warnings to improve their attendance. Of the students who progressed to their first choice law degree, however, not one needed an attendance warning. They all had excellent attendance. You'll start to see a pattern here. It's the percentage of students within each category who missed a test during the year or submitted their work late. You'll see none of the successful law applicants missed a test or submitted any work late. Okay. The students who did not progress all missed tests or submitted work late. Okay. Every week for 2 hours on a Wednesday, we have a personal development session. There's always 1 or 2 students who think, oh, this is a waste of time, I'm not getting a grade for this, blah, blah, blah. Okay. students who are interested in that and engage with it tend to do well on the program overall. It's, you know, it's not rocket science. If you're interested in stuff and you take it seriously, you tend to do well in your studies. So almost everyone who progressed to their first choice law degree engaged with personal development by giving short presentations, participating in debates, and just being ever present and responsive. Of the students who said that they wanted to progress to law last year, but ended up at their second choice destinations, it's only just over a quarter who engage with personal development. So almost 75% of them weren't really active participants in that. And if you're not an active participant in foundation life, then it tells me you're probably not very serious about studying law. Okay, so some conclusions. And I have to draw the same conclusions every year because I see the same thing every year. This is not like these. What happened to the 24 students last year is completely typical. Okay? Students have to perform very well on the IFP to progress to Queen Mary Law. Successful law candidates typically have excellent records of attendance and engagement from week 1. I don't need to tell them in week 7 that they need to buck their ideas up. They're engaged from the beginning. Successful law candidates do well in all their modules and take all of their modules seriously, usually because they're interested in all of their modules. Yeah? They're not faking it, they're just interested in stuff. Sadly, the very worst students we see on the IFP each year typically come from the law pathway. So be aware, if you're on the law pathway, be aware that your teachers have a lot of experience of this phenomenon. And just by telling them, oh, I want to do law, is not going to impress them. Okay? So finally, I just want to tell you about my red flag. So a red flag is kind of like a warning signal. When I see a student doing something or I hear a student saying something, it makes me think, hang on, that's not a good sign. That suggests that this student probably won't be successful on the program or probably won't get the grades that they need to progress to law. So these are the kind of things that if I hear a student say this or a student writes this to me, typically they don't do very well on the IFP and they don't progress to law here. I don't like reading. I'm not interested in history. Politics is too difficult. This topic you've given us isn't relevant to my studies. I've always wanted to be a lawyer. That means nothing. Yeah? No one has always wanted to be a lawyer. You didn't want to be a lawyer when you were 3 years old. I have a 6-year-old daughter and she doesn't even know what a lawyer is. I come from a family of lawyers. This is really common, okay? It's great that you come from a family of lawyers, but that doesn't make you more suitable for studying law at Queen Mary than someone who doesn't come from a family of lawyers. Because if you think about it, that would be really unfair, wouldn't it? I come from a family of lawyers, therefore take me seriously. Means that kid over there who doesn't come from a family of lawyers, don't take him as seriously as you take me. And the last two are not just from law students, but the kind of thing that when I hear, I have some concerns about these students. Students who miss a lot of classes and keep telling me that they had an illness like food poisoning. The number of times I hear students tell me that they had food poisoning, it really makes me concerned about the levels of hygiene in their kitchens, because I think I've had food poisoning one time in my life and I'm 44. Some of my students have food poisoning 2 or 3 times a month. In other words, they don't. And when a student is telling me that they can't come to class because of appointments, that really worries me, because it suggests that studying is not that student's priority. If you have to make an appointment with the bank, you can always make an appointment with your bank at a time when you don't have a class. Appointments made outside of the foundation program timetable do not need to clash. So appointments made with people outside of the university never need to clash with anything within the university. Maybe the one exception would be where you have a visa appointment or you have to register with the police at a certain time. But that's actually quite rare and might only happen to one student once in a year. Please take note. If you're interested in studying law in the future, I'm not telling you this because I don't want you to study law in the future. Everyone here wants you to do really well in the foundation program and to get into your first choice university course next year. Okay? We're telling you this because we care.